where we have two operations, employee details and employee personal details and employee job details. We have two operations which is exposed as a web service from a Babel process. So if I give it like 101 and if I say personal details, I will be getting employee personal details like name, last name, email address and phone number as personal details. If the same thing, if I give it as job details, argument is not working. If I give the same thing for job details as 101, I will be getting job ID, what is the salary for him, what is the manager ID for this employee, and what is the department ID for this employee. I will be getting different information. Okay, so I have two different operations which I have been exposed as a web service. So if the client requires only job details for that particular employee ID, he will call only job details. So if you want personal details, the client can call only personal details within employee ID, so he will get the personal details of that particular employee ID. So now if my requirement is I need to get employee details plus job details both for employee ID. So as a client I does not require to make two calls to external systems to get personal details and job details. So what in the integration layer from the server, what we'll do, we'll make a call to either Babel or to a proxy service of the OSB passing an employee ID. So where our OSB proxy service or the Babel process has to make a call to two operations of that employee web service, get those two details and match that two responses and send it back as a single response to the client. Instead of giving two responses, we will give a single response by merging to this. So now these two things can be executed either parallel or in sequential. So if they are dependent, they are interdependent, and each operation is interdependent on each other, then we need to call them in a sequential. If these two operations are interdependent, is non-interdependent, then we can make a parallel execution. Okay. So now the same thing how we are going to do with OSB. This is our question now. Okay, so first what I will do, I will create one OSB project saying that split join, okay, employee. Okay, I will keep this as a project name. Okay, so where I need to create, first I'll create folder structures, say proxy service, one more, okay. So what should I say? Business service, and next one is I will say resources. So now I have folder structures. So now what I should do? I should create a business service based on the external web service which is an employee. So I will create new business service. So I will say employee service underscore use. Okay, so also finished. So now this business service is based on visitors. So I need to browse the visitor. So to this project, have we created any visitors till now? No. So what we'll do? Browse the visitor. Okay. So do I have visual available for this project? No. So what I'll do, I will say consume it. If we or else what we can do, first we can create, go to resources, create new, where is visual? It says visual. So next, okay, give the name for this and give the URL of the Excel system where it is. This is one option which we already tried it. Now what we'll do, instead of creating it, we'll directly say consume. Okay, while consuming it. Okay, so where I need to place this, I need to specify the folder name. What I'll do, I'll specify the folder name as resources. I'll say I'll give it in resources folder. Okay, and if it is there, any existing there, let us add it. So now service resource, from where we are going to get it. I'm going to get it if the visual file is in your file system, we'll be specifying that. If it is in a UDDI registry, we'll specify that. Else if it is URI, then we'll specify URL of that, what is the system. So now let's get the URL of this one. So this is my visual URL. Copy the URL of this and paste it here. So this is my URL where we are consuming it from external systems. So what this is do, internally it is importing the visuals as well, right? So now it got imported. So now all these resources got imported into this. So how this name of this file will be there? This name will be based upon what you got exposed. In your JDeveloper, if you see it, we will be exposing what is the client name. This is your service name, right? I have two adapters in this. You are making two DB calls to external this adapter, right? From your Beppel, you have one web service which is exposed as a service, and you have two references to your DB adapters, right? To get two different details. So the name of this service, the same thing will come as your visual file name, right? If you see, it both will be the same, right? And select your port and you say okay. So now this is based on HTTP. This is not based on JCA. Our JCA is into DB adapters where we are exposing that via Beppel. We are not exposing directly over JCA to Excel. So we are exposing it via Beppel. So now I have a business service, right? So now if you go and see, it automatically got imported those visuals into our Beppel process, right? And XSD, right, which has employee request as a request, employee job details as a response, and employee personal details as a response, and header information. This is different example, leave it, and employee font if employee is not font. Exceptions are not at all handled in that, but the visual is there based on that. So now we have a visual service, right, which has two operations: input, output, and fault. Okay. So employee request, which takes employee ID as an input, right? Employee personal details. If you click this, click first name, last name, email ID, and phone number. Okay. And employee job details. Same employee request will be the same, and job details will be job ID, salary, these details. Okay. So this is clear, right? So now what we are supposed to do? Okay. So now I wanted to get a request to my proxy and I need to give a response, right? So now what we will do, we will create an XSD and a visitor where we will expose them via proxy service. So whatever the details we get to a proxy service, we will route it to a business service, where business service will receive some details and split it and make invoke to external system. Okay. So now what we will do is, okay, we will create one XSD and one visitor. Okay. Where is my schema? So we'll create XSD first. Okay. I'll say EMP XSD. Okay. So where I'll create two types. Okay. EMP request type, where it has an element with EMP ID and it is string based. Okay. So then I need to create one more complex type where I say EMP response type, which has like ref name, right? Last name, one more element, email ID, element, phone number, one more element, job ID, job ID is of type int, right? Then one more element, salary, int, right? One more element into location. We are not getting it. Manager ID, also manager name, okay, and department ID, where ID is of type string int. So now I have two types. So now what will do? We'll create two elements. Say EMP request element. This is of type EMP request type, and one more element EMP response type, which is of EMP response type, right? Clear? So now if you go and see, okay. Element. I have two elements: employee name, employee request element, employee response element, which are of type employee request type and employee response type. Okay. So now the schema is done. So now what I want to do? So I wanted to go and create a visitor, right? Go and create visitor. So I'll say EMP visitor. Say next. Say finish. So now here name is get employee details. Okay. Right. Input element will be, what is input element? Existing element, where it will be, it is in current resource means existing visitor, so it is in an XSD, right? So we'll keep it in an enclosing project. We'll get employee request element, and this will be goes employee response element, right? So now go and see our source. What source is, we have a service element, we have a binding element, right, with get employees, and we have a port type element which has get employee details, which has get employee details request, get employees detail response messages, and message has partner which is XSD employee response element, employee request element. So by default it has created some value, right? So let's delete which is not required for us. Even if you keep it also, it will not create it, it will not harm you anything, but remove which is not required. I have wisdom, right? So now what I will be getting is, if I expose this as a web service, right? So now what I will get it, if I expose this as a web service, I will be getting input as EMP request element which has request ID, employee EMP ID, right? So now this ID will be passing to a business service which will be creating based on a split join. So whatever the in element you are passing from your proxy service route to a business service, the same will be coming to your split join receive activity, right? So now what will do? Go to your resources, right, or any of the folder, but even split join is resource, so we'll keep it in resource. Go to new, go and create split join. Okay, so I'll say it EMP split join. Say next. Okay, so which is the operation you're going to expose it, right? So we will be exposing single operation is a proxy service, which will, our business service, we have to point single operation. That operation will be splitting into two different operations for each external business service, right? So what I will do, I will create a split join. So resource, we have created a employee visitor with a let employees details. So for this request will be employee ID. So once you get employee ID, we will be making calls to external system, right? So select the operation, select the operation, say finish it, right? So now this is what your split join is. You have a split join which will be executed and which has receive activity and which has reply activity. Okay, we'll see one by one. So by default it will create a scope. Okay, this is a scope. Okay, by default it has created a scope with two variables, which is, this is called a global scope, which has two variables, request, right? Request is based on what type? Let's skip this out. Okay, so I have created a request. Request is of type employee element. Request element what we created. So which has employee ID. And your response is employee response element which has these many details, right? So now we have receive activity which got get employee details, which has get employee request message, and which has response as a employee details response as a reply for this operation, right? So now this has request variable, and general will be a comment. Okay. Let's put this inside. So if I see the same wise, we have a reply, right? Okay. We have reply, we have a request. Okay, same wise for reply as well. Reply for the same operation where the variable will be response variable. Okay, so now this thing will be available into. So now we have this many activities which can be used in your split join. Okay, to make from your split join, okay, if you wanted to make any context, any external systems, either to extend business service. Normally in proxy service we have route, service callout and publish. Here we have only invoke service, and if you wanted to give any reply before, we will be using reply activity to give a reply back. To invoke, we will be having invoke. To give a reply. Okay. If you wanted to use any conditions, okay, we have a if. Okay. If you wanted to loop, we have a loop. For is loop. The same thing like what we have in message flow. Okay. Raise error we will see when we are discussing about errors. It is the same thing like raise error means it will raise another. Okay. We have a throw, right, with the Q name and in people. The same thing. Here we have a raise error. Okay. Repeat until it's a do while. Okay. Raise another. Okay. Raise another means again it will throw it back. Whatever the error it got, it will raise it back. Okay. Here scopes. Here scope. This is a global scope, and we have a local scope as well. We will be creating it up later. Okay. And while. Okay. And if you wanted to, for any scope, you wanted to keep into a wait, you have wait activity. And these are the copy, assign, delete, insert, the same as it is what we have in message flow. Okay, now here we have two types of parallel execution like flow and flow n. Okay, flow n is dynamic, where the n value depends upon runtime what we get it as. Flow is a static where design time and runtime will not change. It will be the same, right? Same wise here, if you use parallel, right? If you get the parallel, it will be fixed. How many here plus will allow you to add. Okay. If you don't want it, select it. Okay. You select any scope and delete it. Okay. Add to scopes. So if you directly use without any looping activities like a while or for each, if you don't have any repeat until, okay, if without any loop activities, if I use parallel, if you use only parallel, your parallel will be dynamic, static. It will be static. Okay, if we have here two parallel scopes, so only these two parallel scopes will execute at runtime as well. Okay. Now let us delete this. Okay. Now if I keep it, okay, for each. So now I kept for each. So now here, this scope is similar to a flow n, where this scope will execute n number of times based upon the n value where I am going to specify it. So this flow, this loop has to execute in parallel. If I say yes, all these scopes will be executing in parallel based upon counter value what I want to specify it. So how I am going to specify this is See, now I am not going to keep anything in the scope. Okay, so for here I will say parallel yes or no. If I say yes, all the scopes, this scope will be executed based upon counter value. If I say like counter value will be I, okay, where the I starts from 0, okay, final value will be, okay, so I can say whether if I get, okay, if I apply ID based upon, so if it is going to come as 10, so this will execute, loop will execute 10 times, and whatever the activities inside the loop will be executing in a parallel. If I say no, each loop will be executed sequentially. After executing one loop, it will start second loop, and it will start after second finish of second, it will start third. Okay. Or else if I say parallel, it will execute those many iterations in parallel. It will not wait if iteration 1 started. To start iteration 2, it will not wait until iteration 1 finishes. Before finishing iteration 1 itself, it will start iteration 2. If I say parallel. If I say no, it will second iteration will wait until first iteration will finish it. Okay. So this is and about your dynamic parallel execution. Okay. So if I don't keep for each, okay, if I keep parallel, okay, so what here you are going to do is only, there is no any iteration, there is no any looping characters for this. So you will get a receive activity, your receive request, your receive flow will split into two sequences, and these two will be joined before giving reply. Before giving reply, the both sequences scopes has to get it finished. Okay. So now I have only two. We'll go for two different operations. Okay. So now what I need to do? So now in scope 1, for one scope what I will do, I will call personal details. Okay. In other scope I will get job details, and before sending it I will merge both. Okay. So now what I will do in job details, so now what are the requests I got it, I have it in request, right, and what are the response I am going to give, it will be available in the response. So what I need to do, I need to invoke my business service which I have created earlier, right. So what I will do, for personal details I have a invoke, get invoke into this. I have a invoke activity in my personal details. If you wanted to create any variables for this, this is a scope, right? You can go and create a variable for the scope, it will create. Okay. If you wanted, you can create it. Okay. Like ID. Okay. Type will be string. Okay. Go and keep as an int. So now it created a variable int. Okay. This is how we are going to create. So this scope of this variable will be available only within this. Okay, if you wanted to add any activities into this, you can add it. Okay, if you wanted to add any variables into this, you can add into this scope. So this will be available only to this scope itself. Once it comes out of the scope, this variable will not be available. Okay. So now what we do, we kept a invoke service. Okay. So what this operation, what we are going to do? Okay, invoke service. So for invoke service, we need to specify what operation I am going to invoke, right? If you see the properties of this, we have invoke service. We need to specify the operation. So let's go and say browse. Okay, go to split join. So I have a business service, employee business service, where I have two operations, right? This is job details. I will select personal details for this scope. This is a personal details scope. So yes. So it is there. So now for this service, so this is, see, when you select this service itself, so automatically what happened? There is a link created. From the split join, I am making a call to external service. There will be one. This is global level, right? So it will create a services and variables. So this service will be created and it will be accessed within the scope. Okay. So now, what is the variables for this scope? Right? I need to create input variable and output variable for this. Right? So what is for this operation? What is the input type? It is an employee request message, and output will be employee person's message. Right? Go to variables and say, what is the variable message? We don't have a message, so we will be creating a message variable, not element variable. So we will select a message variable. Okay. EMP request message. Okay. Say now this variable has to be a local variable or global variable. Okay. So it should be a global variable. We have data already in a global variable. We create it and copy it. Okay. So now, what is the output variable? Employee personal message. Right? I'll create one more message. EMP personal message. Which is I'll create as a global, say, global message. So I have done for this. Even there is a variable, I am not using it. Let it leave it. Okay. So I have one more scope where I need to add some into this, right? See, here it's showing a Z mark, right? It means it's having, there is some error in this. So the error is there must be at least one child activity to be valid. Without any activities, keeping empty scope is not valid. Okay, so get one more invoke service into this, keep it as an invoke. Okay, so now what is this invoke service is going to do? Right? So for this invoke, I have an operation where I need to specify the operation. Select the operation. Apply business service. Now I'll be select job details. So okay. Right? So now what I need to do? See, now this again already there is a reference to that, so it will be getting same operations, two operations on the same service. So now next step is go and create input variable. So now for this input variable, what is the input variable for this? So this operation is going to take input variable of employee request message, and output will be employee job detail, job message. So while creating earlier invoke, we created an employee request message. So that's the reason in the message variable it shows if there is a variable it will show. If you don't want to use this, then you can create one more message variable. So I had already there of the same message type, also like that. Okay, and output variable. Now we don't have any job message variable. So what we will do, we will create one variable for EMP job message. This is of a global. I will create as a global sender. So now error is lost, but I don't have any errors. Right? So now before invoking this, I need to assign a value into this. Right? So now to assign a value into this, what we will do, before parallel, before executing this invokes itself, we need to keep a value in assign value, right? So what we will do, we will go keep a assign, right? Either you can keep it here or you can keep it here. If you keep it here, you need to do twice. So what I'll do, I'll keep it here. So if I assign one time into that variable, that should be sufficient. It will go for both. So if I keep it here, okay, so these two will execute parallelly. So both will start at a time, right? So this has started, right? So when this is started, there won't be any value into this. Here if I keep it, there will be value for this. Here it will be not value. If I keep here, it will not be available for this, right? So what I will do, I'll keep it before this. So value will be available in the request message, employee request message, and that variable will be used for both, right? So what I do, here I need to do. So select the assign, and in assign what we are going to do, we have a variable. What is the variable? Employee message part. This is our variable. Into this we need to assign a value. So the element name for this, right? I have employee request message. This is my element name, employee request, which has employee ID element, and I have request element, which I have data into this, right? Both element names are the same.
Element names are
different name, but my variable is referring till this part, right? If you see this, the variable is emp request message dot part. It is only referring till this part. It is holding up to this. Inside this, I need to construct this both. So one way is, what I need to do, I need to get this, right? Or the option is copy this. You have exam colon, prefix is exam, right, for this element. So prefix will be same for this elements. So one thing is, you construct exam colon message request, right? I got it from this only, right? Okay. Employee request, again, say, open this, employee ID, slash, right? This is on, we need to construct. Inside this, we need to keep ID. The ID is coming from this one. So the ID is coming into this. So we need to keep it like this. This is one way of doing it. Okay. So now entire this expression will be copied into this message part, right? So into okay. So this is one option. Okay. So now I am constructing an expression which has a value. Okay. This expression will be copied into message part. Okay, this is one option. Okay, or else I can use, if you're constructing all these prefixes, you should be very careful while constructing this. If you are confused to do this, the other way of doing is close this. What we will do, we will create X query expression saying that, okay, new X query transformation. I have request message as a different based on different existing, and what I need to pass is different existing, right? So what I will do, emp request X query, say next. So now what is the source? Source format is this XST, EMP XST which we created it. So what I will do, I will say employee request element, I will add it as a, so this is the one what we had it as a request element. So let add as at a source. So and target will be which one? Target will be which XST? The other external web service is XST, right? Which is this one, right? So expand this. I have a employee request. So this is what we want it, right? So if you see, go to the notepad. So this is what we constructed it, right? So finish. Go to exploit transformations. So now expand this. See now, I have employee ID. Get it to this. So if you see, what is the one we got it? We created the same one, right? The namespace here, it created the same namespace, but it is a different one prefix, different prefixes, nothing to worry about. So employee element. So we have employee element, have employee ID, where we have employee ID, and the data, employee request data slash EMP ID. This is what we have it, right? Right. So either we can implement like this, or we have an X query where your life will be simplified, where you can select the source format and destination format and drag it and point it. Okay. So now this is done. So now what I will do, I will go to my assign activity, where in the expression where I will say, instead of this expression what I will do, I will remove this, I will go and say X query, say, now select my X query which we have created it, say request X query, say OK. So now what is the input value for this? The input will be employee request element, which is from this, right? Employee request element. So drag it and give it that. We have created source element as employee request element. So select this. Say OK. So now it is done, right? Same wise, now after we had assigned the value, that variable will be used for two invokes. Then we have output variables which is available as part of this too, right? So now what we have to do is, we have to merge those two values and give a reply. Before giving a reply, we need to merge it, right? So what I will do is, we will have one more go to OSB layer and keep one more assign before your reply. Okay. So now our job is again match those two different outputs into one variable, right? So now we have two different output variables. So now again, if you wanted to construct it, go to variables. Here it will be response parameter which we needed to hold the values, right? To this we need to give it back so that will carry it back. So now we need to construct enter this message which will be holding which needs to hold these many values, right? So what we need to do, we need to get this value, we need to construct like earlier expression what we constructed, and each value we need to pick it from personal variable and job value. We have these four variables here, these four details in this. We need to get each value of this and construct an expression which is of this element. So that we need to do. Or create one more xquery function, say emp response, say next. Now what is the source for this? Two different XSDs. Okay. So the source will be go to schema which has personal details as one source and job details as one source. We have two different sources as a source type. Say next, and target will be only one type, which is EMP XSD employee response element, which has these many elements. I add as a response which has target this type. Say finish. So go to transformations. Now see the source, it has employee response element as this, as an empty. Now what we'll do, we will drag each one and connect it. If names are both sides, then it's easy. We can select this and drag it, it will connect it. If names are different, then we need to explicitly connect it. Salary to salary, manager ID to manager, name. So here we are getting ID. Here it is string. So if you see here, data type is int. Here data type is string. Here data type is ID, int. Here it is int. So drag it and drop it. So now what to do? We need to convert int type to string type, right? How will you do that? Select manager, right? Go to select the expressions. We have an expression where we need to construct the expression. So we have a xquery functions available, right? Type conversion function, say string, right? So input will be integer. So we will drag and drop the integer to this and say apply. So that is done. So now this is a function which will convert that into that. Okay. So now I have a function, nothing to worry about. So now I will go to my split join and say in expressions, what I will do, come back to your OSB's perspective and select your action. Go to the expression, say source, browse your xquery, expand the source, response xquery, say OK. So now I need to bind it to two variables, right? Job details and personal details. So expand your job details. So this is your job details. Get it into job details. And same as personal details, expand this. Get your employee personal details into this. Say OK. And that details will be assigned to your response parameter. Say OK. Okay. So now your split join is done. So now what we need to select with split join. Based on this split join, now we need to create a business service which will execute parallel. So now our split join has two different operations which will be calling it, which will be executing parallel. So now we need to create a business service based on this split join so that business service will execute in parallel. Okay, so select this split join, go to your OSB, generate a business service. Say business service. Okay, so you can keep it in a business service folder. Okay, employee business service, split join. It will be based on split join. It will create same name, or you can append it, anything is fine. So okay. So now your business service has created based on a split join, right? So now your business service is based on a visual now? No. So it's a transport type where you have a flow. Here we have a different protocols, right? If you see earlier business service, we have lot of protocols here, right? We have one more protocol called flow. Okay. So this business service will be based on a flow protocol. Okay. So here I have a service types as a transport type, where this can be used for EJB or flow, which is a split join based. Okay, and flow transport everything you can leave it as it is. So now we have a business service which will be executed based on a flow, right? So now what we have to do? We have to create a proxy service. Create a proxy service. This proxy service. See, employee service. Let's go to this. Let's say finish. So now what this type of this is based on visual service. I'll say select which visual it is, EMP visual, right? Select the binding, say okay, say yes. So now everything will be created and protocol will be HTTP, transport, everything we can leave it. Okay, now transactions, if you want it, you keep it transaction separate. Okay, we say handle transaction separate or not required. Okay, if you are going to keep transaction separate, it will be creating global transaction for this. So now what we will do, we will route it, we need to route it to a business service, right? What I will do, I will keep a route and a routing in route node. So now which business service I need to route from here? A business service based on split join, right? So select the business service. So okay. So now what is the operation for proxy service? What is the operation for business service? It is the same operation or different operation? Same or different? So what is the visual we have chosen for creating a split join? That is for invocations. The input for split join is EMP visual. So the same visual we have used for proxy service as well, right? So now what I can do, I can use the same inbound for outbound operation, or if you want it, you can choose this as well, your choice. Okay. So choosing this. So now your request will come to a proxy service which will be routed to business service which will be executing in parallel, right? So that's it done. So now what we'll do, we will deploy this onto the server. See here what we have, you don't have enough much support for creating XSLT file. Okay, we say XSLT1. See, you don't have much design options what we have in JDeveloper. If you go and see there, you don't have support for XQuery. Okay, and the engine support for OSB is better for XQuery than XSLT. In OSA, XSLT engine performance with engine is more than XQuery. Okay. So now what we'll do, we'll run this onto the server. We'll deploy this. Okay. So now from where should we test it? Here we have only single operation. Whether we can test it from here, what we'll do. So now here how many instances we have?
Okay. Right, sir. Okay. Running
Okay. So which is today with dates there nothing. So what we'll do, we'll go to one more console. What is that? OSB console for OSB, from where we can test it and do some implementation as well. From here as well we can do some implementation. For server, for people we don't have that option. Okay. So go to my project explorer, or what I can go from my resource explorer, where all resources will be the same name. Okay. So that's the reason many times when I am going to specify the name, right, I'll specify either ps underscore ps or underscore ps. That's where you can easily identify it. If there is no any name like this, if I go to resource browser, it will list out all the resources in without any folder sections. It will display all the names. Now if there is no any proxy service or business service for distant machine, how will you specify whether it is proxy service or business service? Will be difficult. And here one more something will help you is, if you give a proper folder names like this, project name / folder name, then we can identify, okay, this is under proxy service, we have it may be proxy service. That is one more option. Okay. Or else we have to come to each like this and say, no, all these are proxy services. Click on business service. All these are business services. Or you have to go like this. So if you go directly to resources, it will be difficult to identify it. So that's the reason you have to give proper names there. I have employee split join. I have to test my proxy service. So how many business services I will be having? 2. This business service will be having 2 operations. If you test it, it will have 2 operations to execute. Right? If you go for this operation, it will be having only 1 operation, where this business service will be splitting the request into 2. Right? And if you go to your proxy service, we have only 1 proxy service, and it will be having 1 single operation which may call to proxy service. Now let us keep it as that one and say execute. See, now all details are available in single shot. Right? So now here we are making call to how to split join, where this will be executing in parallel. Right? Or you can directly go to business service, and even you can test it your business service directly. Say that, okay, employee details, give me like 1 or 2. Execute it. Okay. You get different details. Okay, now if you go back here, we will be having how many instances? 18. You should be having 4 more. We are making 2 calls. For each invocation, we are executing 2 operations, 2 different operations, 2 different requests. It's not a single request, right? What is the date? 9. This one. 18. 4 plus 4. Right? Now only we tested it, right? See, both invocations came at same time. Right? So that's what it's ensures that we got it in a parallel. Control effect.